Calling in from the United Kingdom, I'm delighted to be joined by an English musician best known as the bass guitarist for Dire Straits. Not to mention, he has won numerous Brit and Grammy Awards and a Heritage Award. He has also produced 7 solo albums, 2 live albums, 2 DVDs, and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018 as a member of Dire Straits. On behalf of myself and Brandeis University, John Illsley, thank you for joining the program today.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you.
I don't think many of our young listeners are familiar with the origins of Dire Straits. Can you explain how the band started?
Well, I was a student in London in 1975, I think it was, when I needed somebody to share the rent on my council flat. You know, I don't know what you call them in America, but anyway, the rent was about £9.50 a week, which is probably then was about $16, and I couldn't afford it. And so I needed a flatmate, and David Knopfler turned up. He was a friend of mine. And we got on very well. So he moved in, and consequently, I met his brother Mark a few weeks later, and we shared the same interests in music, same kinds of music, and ended up playing together in the flat, working on various things from time to time. And he was actually a lecturer at a college in the east of England, so he used to come down at the weekends. And I mean, just gradually we became very good friends, and I don't know, we just fell into the idea of a band. And David played the guitar as well, of course, as you know, and we needed a drummer, and Mark had met this chap Pick Withers from some previous band that he'd been in, and Pick came down, liked what he heard, and we suddenly had ourselves a band, which was very exciting. And I'd been in a lot of bands before, and so had Mark, but I think that there was something about this which made it special for me and for him, and I think for the rest of us, that we would in a unique sort of outfit, I think, and a unique sound. It's difficult to explain because, you know, when you play with different musicians, you create a different kind of sound, and the sound of Dire Straits really started pretty much straight away, with the combination of all of us all playing together. And then, of course, Mark was writing songs pretty much from the moment that I met him, and so we had ourselves a bunch of good songs to play with, and off we went.
When I reached out in late January to invite you to join the show, I was told you were in the studio. What was that all about? And should we be expecting new music soon?
Well, I didn't have much to do over lockdown, so I thought I had a few ideas that I wanted to put down. So I've been working on this record for the last few months, and yes, I'm probably, I reckon, about 3/4 of the way through. I've got a few more things to add to it, and yeah, I enjoy making a record every couple of years. Really, I have done for for the last 10 or so years. Yeah.
Do you see a different perspective now that you're making the records rather than singing, and you see more of the behind the scenes aspect?
Well, actually, I've decided that I found my own voice, if you like, because in the past, as you know, with the Straits, I was just doing backing vocals and such like. But I've been, as a solo artist, been doing a lot of gigs over the last, where are we now, 2011, probably for the last 10 or 11 years. I've been going out playing solo gigs, with various people, and my voice has become something that I'm a bit happier than I used to be with. I mean, it's I find I really enjoy singing now, and and writing has become not obsessive, but something that I enjoy doing, and so I'm constantly jotting down ideas, on the train or in the late evening or something. I think, oh, that's a good idea, and suddenly you have a jigsaw puzzle of ideas, and you just put them all together basically, and you end up with an album at the end of the day.
Currently, you own a local pub called the East End Arms. What interested you about joining and investing in the dining and hospitality industry?
Well, I think most people dream of joining a rock and roll band and owning a pub. I think there's those two things sort of seem to go together. But um, it was a coincidence, like a lot of things in one's life. I bought a house where I'm speaking from now 30 years ago, and I used to go to the local pub, and it was a bit of a sorry state. And the manager said he was leaving, and that the pub was being sold. And I said, "How much is it?" And he said, "Well, it's this amount." And I went, "Okay, well, I'll buy it and you run it." And then I went on tour for 2 years. 31 years later, I've still got it. And I love it because in America, you probably know the pub in the UK and in England is a very necessary part of everyday life. It's a place where people meet. It's quite unique, really. It's a place where people meet after work or go and have a meal or whatever. And it's it's something that glues the community together. And I like that element of it. So that's quite important for me because I know quite a few people around here now, and you can just go down to the pub at any one time, even if you're on your own, you'll find somebody there to talk to. It's great.
Given,
It's a great community asset, and I enjoy owning it and enjoy going to it. So it makes a lot of sense for me.
given the fact that you toured worldwide, you produced music in a recording studio, and you worked with different personnel, how do you think this pandemic will affect how future musical productions are conducted?
Oh golly, that's a very big question to answer simply. I mean, in a nutshell, this has been a complete nightmare for live music and for an awful lot of musicians who rely on playing live for to put bread on the table. Uh, and there's been a lot of charitable elements going on within the music community itself to try and not just keep venues alive, but also to keep musicians alive. I mean, it's a dreadful situation right now. I really don't know how it's all going to pan out, because I think everywhere in the world is going to be very nervous about having big numbers of people in a space together. It's going to be very odd. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, they're trying to open up things gradually later this year, but I think they're very nervous about it, and naturally so. I don't really know. Interestingly enough, digital music and such like has done very well over the last 12 months. So the record companies are making plenty of money, but
Speaking,
the artists are struggling.
speaking of artists, after touring, you developed a passion for painting, and within the last year specifically, it seems more people have begun to develop a greater appreciation for the arts. First,
Mm.
how did you find your painting passion? And second, what effects do you believe art has had during these quarantine periods?
Well, I've been passionate about art actually from quite a young age. It was shortly after I started playing the guitar that I met somebody who was my art teacher at my school, who opened my eyes to looking at things in a different way. So I've been passionate about art since I was about 15 years old, which has been wonderful. And those two things have run side by side. The music and the art, for me, have always, been a good marriage. And when I'm not playing the guitar or writing and touring, I'm usually in my art studio painting. So I'm a very fortunate person that I have two different things that I love doing. And I think that during this pandemic, people have had a different way of looking at their time. They've not been able to go anywhere. That a lot of them haven't been going to work, so they've had a lot of free time, and I think they've probably started looking at the world in a slightly different way, which is good. I mean, the world does need looking at a different way in a lot of areas, socially and political. And I think I think the art side of things art is an emotional thing. I think it's, as soon as you pick up a paintbrush or a pencil and start doing something, you're connecting with the world in a different kind of way. And I don't want to make too much of it, but I think it's very good for your soul if you can follow an artistic endeavor, whether it be music, learning a musical instrument, learning how to paint. I mean, I know art classes are incredibly busy online. Um, and I think it's been really good for people in some ways. I mean, generally speaking, the lockdown has been a nightmare for most people. But so if something good comes out of it, like people's appreciation of art and them becoming artists, I think that's a great thing.
You talked about this early in the beginning of the interview, that you had the opportunity to live and work with the Knopfler brothers, among other band members.
Yeah.
Looking back, what lessons did you take away from that period that you still apply to your life today, both in music and just how you live your normal life?
Well, I can safely say that meeting the Knopfler boys, especially Mark, has been an extraordinary experience for me, working with him and having him as a friend and companion, and has been a fantastic part of my life. I mean, I can't really overemphasize it enough. I mean, the world knows him as a guitar player and a songwriter and all the rest of it. I know him as that, obviously, because I've worked with him, but I know him on so many other different levels. He's a very complicated man. He's very, very funny. He's incredibly generous, and uh, I've been very fortunate to have spent a lot of my time with him, and we still do. We talk regularly and we see each other quite regularly. At the moment, it's obviously a bit difficult, but um, yes, that was to me has been a remarkable um, element of my life, which has given me great joy and great pleasure. So uh, yeah, that's
Since
pretty major.
since last performing for Dire Straits in 1995, how have you noticed rock music evolve over the years? And to that point, are there any artists or bands that come to mind where you say, "Wow, they're the epitome of classic rock"?
Oh gosh, I hate these kind of questions because um, a band like the Straits really sort of plowed its own furrow. We didn't really follow any kind of trends or any fashion ideas or anybody's ideas of fashion or what things should be. So my opinions of other people are quite limited, really. I tend to be a bit of a traditionalist with what I listen to. I think it's singer-songwriters, writers of music, writers of songs appeal to me more than most other things. But there's so many people out there. I mean, playing, it would be difficult to actually pick out one or two bands that, I mean, my children basically who are in their early 20s, they tend to feed me stuff from time to time. So I'm very aware of people like Billie Eilish and um, God, now I'm thinking of people they keep. Of course, I've forgotten, but there's so much going on out there. I think it's sometimes it's really difficult to keep up. I mean, I have difficulty enough just keeping up with my own stuff, let alone going on and searching around for things. If somebody says, "Listen to this" or whatever, um, I'm a sucker for a singer-songwriter. I mean, I loved Bob Dylan's last album, Rough and Rowdy Ways. I thought that was just great. I mean, what can I say? I mean, it's a big subject, music,
Do you
very
find
big subject.
do you find that within the last 50 years that the music has changed, that the melodies have changed, or that, what AC/DC made in the 70s is the same as what they're making today in their music, or what Aerosmith made, or what the Cars made? Is it similar throughout the years, or do you find variation, do you think, in your opinion?
Well, there's a certain kind of energy in rock music, I think, which is important to understand. It's really the sort of the the cry of the young, as far as I'm rock music. I mean, okay, lots of old people are doing it because they've been doing it for donkey's years, and they haven't got anything else to do in their lives. They love playing rock music and they love performing, which is wonderful. But rock and roll music, as an idea, is something which really begins with the young, and it's the reason why we all got involved in it, and it's the reason why young people get involved in it now. It's something which has got a certain kind of energy to it, which is very appealing, and it's something which, to me, should not just be generic. I think that if you're going to do music, then do something different. Speak with your own voice. Don't speak with other people's voices. When we listen to the radio now, there's a certain kind of generic similarity to music. I don't know what it's like in the States right now, because I haven't been there for such a long time, but certainly on English radio, British radio, you hear the same kinds of music. They're not experimental, if you like. So
Yes.
it's always interesting when somebody comes up with something new.
I agree completely that, like, when I listen to the radio today, and it is the same in the United Kingdom, that there's not a lot of variation, that radio stations and music stations are repeatedly playing the same 20 songs over and over again. And that's why
Yes.
when you talk about, someone like Billie Eilish or the band Coldplay, that it's something different that people haven't heard before.
Yes, I mean, there's a certain amount of sort of safety which record companies and radio stations go for, and I think it's a shame. I mean, we just actually recently just got a new radio station in the UK, a digital radio station called what's it called, Boom or something like that, and it's a strange thing, but it's actually for people who grew up with music in the 50s and 60s. So they're playing music from then all the way through. It's not just what's happening now, And I think there's so much music out there, almost too much. I don't know. There's something like 40,000 songs a day put onto Spotify. I mean, it's an incredible amount of information pushed at people all the time. You just can't keep up with it, and but it's always good to look back and see what was going on before. And I don't like this sort of generic platform that we seem to have got for ourselves. And the record I'm making at the moment, I'm trying to make it not different, but have a different kind of voice to it, a different kind of feel. Obviously, I've been playing the music that I played with Dire Straits for 40 years now. God, time does fly. And that's it. So it's going to have that feel to it because that's the way I play music. But just writing about different kind of things, different kind of ideas about things that are going on out there and what have you. Anyway, I mean, I love doing it, and I love listening to music. I'll never stop listening to music. To me, it's not a job; it's a passion.
When you look back on the Dire Straits era, is there a moment you most particularly enjoyed?
That's always a difficult question. I think that there were moments when we were making new records that I was always pleasantly surprised when Mark would come up with a particular song. I mean, for instance, when first time he played Romeo and Juliet to me on an acoustic guitar, just in my house, he said, I've come up with this, this song, take a listen, see what you think. I mean, I just turned to him and said, that's pretty good. And, and so he constantly surprised me. So it's difficult to pick out a moment, but from the band's point of view, I think playing at concerts like Live Aid was obviously a remarkable moment in musical history, but also people probably, I don't know whether people remember the Mandela 70th birthday concert we did in 1988, I think it was. That was a seminal moment too, just bringing the world together. The thing about music, which everybody I think is aware of now, is it's a great tool for joining people together throughout the world. And what I love about the internet, a lot of things I don't like about the internet. One of the things I love about the internet is that I constantly get, probably like a lot of people do in my position, they constantly getting messages from around the world, onto my information page about this or that. And it's a wonderful thing to hear from people in China, in Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South America, people writing to you saying, I'm 22 years old and I've just heard your music for the first time. And I go, well, that's really great. I mean, what could be better than that?
Once live concerts resume after this pandemic, do you have any plans to continue performing around the United Kingdom?
Yeah, well, I actually, it's funny you should say that, because the requests are already coming in. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And at the moment, I'm just holding back a bit because I don't quite know what is going to happen. But yes, I'm planning a small tour in the UK next year, and it sounds a long way off. It's a year away, for goodness sake. But there's a few things I'm going to do this year. I think one-offs, if it's safe to do it. I'm not going to even contemplate putting the band back together and the crew and all the rest of it. And with things to be cancelled, it's just terrible to get people's expectations up and then say, oh, no, we can't do it. So I'm holding back a bit. I'm just enjoying, actually a bit of time off, and finishing this record will be great, and doing a bit more painting. And when touring comes up, I'm ready for it. I just love performing. I just love it. So I'll be there. I'll be there as soon as I can.
A variety of Brandeis students are pursuing degrees in music and studio art. What advice do you have for them and other students interested in pursuing a career in the art and music industry?
Well, one thing's for sure, you're never going to be bored. If you're in a creative world, which art and music, writing, whatever you're doing, you're never going to be bored, because it's always a challenge to pull something together and get it right. But the biggest thing for me has always been, the reason why I do any of this is communication. And with art, paintings, you communicate obviously in a different way than you do with music. Music is this incredible kind of joiner of ideas and stuff from, in lots of ways around the world, with people in a pub, whatever, people sit around listening to the same sort of music. Art is much more specific, but it's all about expression. It's about communication, because the greatest pleasure you can have is when you've written a song and you play it, and somebody comes up and says, that's a really cool song, that I like that. Or even if you paint one picture and somebody says, I get that, even if it's incredibly abstract, it touches people. The whole point about communication is to touch people. The whole point about creativity is you're making a difference in the world. You're actually reaching out to people from something inside you which you perhaps never realized you had.
John Illsley, thank you for joining the program this afternoon. For those interested in purchasing your solo albums or your artwork, where can they go online for more information?
Well, I've got there's my website. It says johnillsley.com. It's as simple as that. johnillsley.com, and it's all on there. Some paintings on there, and the albums are on there, and some news is on there when I get round to refreshing it.
Fantastic. As we head to break here, are there 2 songs from any of your albums that we can play?
From my albums?
Yeah.
Yes, there's actually the song from the last album, Coming Up for Air, is a nice, I like that piece of music. And let me think. I think from an album I did, Streets of Heaven, years ago, there's a song on there called Toe the Line.
Fantastic. You got it.
They'll do it.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure talking to you.